The sound of the key turning in the lock echoes through the empty hallway. I stand there, staring at the brass doorknob, watching it refuse to budge despite my desperate twisting. Through the frosted glass panel, I can make out Clara's silhouette, her perfectly styled hair unmistakable even through the distorted view. Mother Clara, please. It's freezing out here. My voice cracks, betraying more emotion than I want her to hear. She moves closer to the door. Oh, Naomi dear, did you forget your key again? How terribly forgetful you've become since Rachel passed. The mention of my mother's name hits like a slap. My hands clench into fists, nails digging into my palms. You know I didn't forget my key. You changed the locks. Did I? Her voice drips with false concern. Brandon mentioned wanting better security. I was only trying to help. Of course. Brandon. My husband who's away on another business trip, leaving me alone with his mother. The same woman who welcomed me with open arms at my mother's funeral 3 months ago, offering to share her home while we saved for our own place. At least let me get my coat, I plead, hugging myself against the cold. The thin sweater I'm wearing does nothing against the bitter evening air. I think some time alone might help you appreciate our household rules better. The shadow behind the glass moves away. Remember, dear, 7 o'clock means 7 o'clock. Not 7:15. I hear her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, growing fainter. My phone's in my purse inside the house. My wallet too. Everything except my car keys, which are useless since Clara had my car serviced last week. It hasn't started since. A light flicks on in the neighbor's house. Liam's probably watching this whole scene unfold. He's witnessed enough of these incidents over the past months, offering sympathetic glances but keeping his distance. Smart man. I sink down onto the front step, wrapping my arms around my knees. Mom would know what to do. She always had a way of handling difficult people with grace. But Mom's gone, and I'm here, locked out of my own home by a woman who wears kindness like a mask. The garden gnome by the steps seems to mock me with its frozen smile. Clara's prized roses line the pathway, their thorns gleaming in the fading light. I reach out and snap one off at the stem, watching a drop of blood well up where it pricked my finger. One day, Clara will learn that roses aren't the only things with thorns. Brandon's voice crackles through my phone speaker, distorted by poor reception or maybe just distance. I'll be home next weekend, I promise. Just 2 more clients to see. I trace the rim of my coffee cup, watching Clara arrange flowers at her work table across the kitchen. She hums softly, precise hands weaving stems into her latest masterpiece. That's what you said last weekend. Naomi, please. You know how important this deal is for us. For our future. Clara's humming stops. Her scissors snap through a stem with unnecessary force. Our future, I repeat, the words tasting bitter. Right. Mother's taking good care of you, isn't she? Clara looks up, those practiced warm eyes meeting mine. She smiles, wielding kindness like a weapon. She's been attentive. I turn away, lowering my voice. Brandon, about last night dash. Oh, sweetheart, Clara interrupts, loud enough for Brandon to hear. Should I make your favorite pasta for dinner? You barely touched your breakfast. Mother says you're not eating well. Brandon's concern bleeds through the static. Are you feeling okay? Of course she told him that. Just like she told him about my forgetfulness with the house key, my careless handling of her antique vase. My emotional instability since Mom died. I'm fine. The lie comes easily now. Just tired. Get some rest then. Mother will look after you. Love you. The call ends before I can respond. Clara's scissors continue their rhythmic snipping, each cut like a countdown to something inevitable. "He works so hard," she says, selecting a blood-red rose. "Sometimes I worry he pushes himself too much." "For you." My coffee has gone cold. "What do you mean?" "Well, dear, these business trips. They started after your mother's funeral expenses, didn't they? Brandon felt responsible, being the man of your family now." The truth hits like a punch to the gut. Mom's funeral was modest, I'd insisted on it. But Clara had stepped in, upgrading everything from the casket to the catering. "It's what Rachel deserves," she'd said, her hand on Brandon's shoulder. "I never asked him to dash." "Of course not, dear. But that's what family does." She places the finished arrangement on the counter between us. "We sacrifice for each other." The roses loom over my coffee cup, their perfect petals arranged in a suffocating symmetry. Behind them, Clara watches me with that same manufactured smile, waiting for my reaction. I stand abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air." "Don't forget your key this time," she calls after me, her voice honey-sweet with poison. I'm halfway to the door when I hear the scissors resume their cutting, methodically trimming away at whatever stands in their way. The letter falls from between the pages of Clara's flower arrangement journal, crisp and white against the hardwood floor. I shouldn't read it. But after 3 hours of searching her study for anything to explain her hold over Brandon, I'm past caring about shoulds. "Dearest Brandon," it begins in Clara's perfect cursive. "I know you're worried about Naomi's behavior lately. The incidents I've mentioned are getting worse." My hands shake as I scan the pages. Every accident in the house, the broken vase, the stained carpets. The missing jewelry carefully documented and twisted into evidence of my instability. She's been writing to him weekly, building her case against me one letter at a time. Perhaps the stress of losing her mother has affected her more deeply than we thought. I've noticed concerning patterns. The study door creaks. I freeze, letter clutched to my chest. "Finding anything interesting?" Clara's voice slides through the darkness like ice water. I turn slowly. She stands in the doorway, still wearing her flower-arranging apron, scissors dangling from one hand. "How long have you been poisoning him against me?" "Poisoning?" She steps inside, closing the door behind her. Such an ugly word. I'm protecting my son from a woman who clearly needs help. By lying to him? Am I lying? Her scissors catch the lamplight. "You are in my private study, reading my personal correspondence. Rather proves my point about your instability." The trap closes around me. She planned this, probably left the journal visible on purpose, knowing I'd search her study eventually. "I'll tell Brandon everything." "With what evidence?" "Your word against mine?" She smiles that poison-sweet smile. The troubled widow, desperate to keep her husband, breaking into her mother-in-law's private space? Brandon will be heartbroken, but he'll understand why I had to tell him. Tell him what? About recommending psychiatric help, of course. I've already discussed it with his sister. She agrees you're showing signs of paranoid behavior. My back hits the desk. I didn't even know Brandon had a sister. You're going to need help, dear. Clara moves closer, scissors glinting. Professional help. And Brandon will insist on it once he hears about this latest episode. The letter crumples in my fist. "You won't get away with this." "I already have." She reaches past me, plucking a rose from the vase on her desk. "You know what I love about roses? They're absolutely beautiful, but handle them wrongly. She snips the flower's head off in one clean cut. And they can hurt you badly. The rose head falls at my feet, its petals scattering like drops of blood across the floor. Liam's kitchen feels like sanctuary after 3 days of Clara's psychological warfare. He slides a mug of coffee across his counter, watching me with careful eyes. "You can't go back there," he says. I wrap my hands around the warm ceramic. "I have nowhere else." "She's going to destroy you, Naomi." I've seen this before. My sister went through something similar with her mother-in-law. The coffee burns my tongue, but I welcome the pain. It's real, unlike Clara's manufactured concern. "What happened to your sister?" "She lost custody of her kids." His jaw tightens. Her mother-in-law convinced everyone she was unstable. By the time anyone realized the truth, it was too late. My phone buzzes. Another message from Brandon. "Mother says you haven't been home in days. Please call me." He has a sister, I say suddenly. "Did you know that?" Clara mentioned her, but Brandon's never. The revelation hits me harder now. There's so much I don't know about my own husband's family. Liam leans forward. "I've been doing some digging." Brandon's sister Sarah was institutionalized 15 years ago. Clara told everyone she had a nervous breakdown after their father left. The mug slips from my hands, shattering against the floor. Coffee spreads like dark blood across the tiles. "I'm sorry," I whisper, but Liam's already grabbing paper towels. "There's more," he says, kneeling to clean up the mess. "Sarah got out 5 years ago. She's been trying to contact Brandon, but Clara intercepts everything. I found her, Naomi. She's willing to talk." My phone buzzes again. "Clara, this time, darling, I've scheduled an appointment with Dr. Matthews." Brandon agrees it's for the best. The pieces click together: Sarah's institutionalization, Clara's letters about my instability, the carefully orchestrated incidents. History repeating itself with surgical precision. "I need to see Sarah," I say, standing so abruptly that Liam startles. Before Clara can dash. The doorbell rings. Through Liam's front window, I see Clara on his porch, wearing her Sunday best and carrying one of her signature flower arrangements. Behind her stands a man in a white coat, holding what looks like official papers. "Naomi?" Clara's voice carries through the door, honey-sweet and deadly. "Dr. Matthews is here to help. Brandon's very worried about you, dear." "We all are." Liam grabs my arm, pulling me toward his back door. "There's a car waiting around the corner. Sarah's expecting you." I hear the front door's lock turning. Clara must have charmed a spare key from someone. "Time's up." "Run," Liam whispers. "Find Sarah. Find the truth." Sarah's hands shake as she slides the photo across the diner table. The image shows a younger Brandon, maybe 16, standing beside a girl with his same dark eyes. Behind them, Clara tends to her roses, but her attention is fixed on the camera, her smile a perfect mask. "That was 2 weeks before she convinced everyone I was crazy," Sarah says. Her fingers drum against her coffee cup, a nervous rhythm. "I found Dad's letters, you see. The ones that proved she'd driven him away with her. Methods." My phone vibrates again, the 20th call from Brandon today. I silence it. "What methods?" "The same ones she's using on you. Isolation. Gaslighting. Little cruelties disguised as care." Sarah's laugh is brittle. "Did she start with the roses yet?" "She always starts with the roses." A chill runs through me. "What do you mean?" "Watch her garden. Count the bushes. She plants a new one for each person she. Sarah stops, pressing her lips together. I shouldn't have contacted you. She'll know somehow. She always knows. The diner's bell chimes. An elderly couple enters, but my heart still jumps. Brandon doesn't remember you. How is that possible? Selective memory is a powerful thing. Especially when Mother Dearest feeds you the right story for 15 years. Sarah pulls out another photo, Brandon visiting her in the institution. Clara hovering nearby. These visits stopped after 6 months. Mother said I was too unstable, that seeing me upset him too much. My phone screen lights up with a text from Liam. Clara filed a missing persons report. Police involved now. I need proof, I say, standing abruptly. Something concrete that Brandon can't deny. Sarah grabs my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. I had proof once. Look where it got me. She glances around the diner, lowering her voice. But there might be something. In her garden shed, behind the rose trellises, there's a loose floorboard. Mother keeps her real diary there, not the fake one she leaves for people to find. The bell chimes again. This time, I recognize the precise click of heels on linoleum. Well, Clara's voice carries across the diner. What a lovely family reunion. She stands in the doorway, elegant as ever in her gardening clothes, printing shears hanging from her belt. Behind her, I glimpse Brandon's familiar silhouette through the diner's window. Sarah's hand tightens on my wrist, her nails digging in. Don't let her see you're afraid, she whispers. That's when she strikes. Clara approaches our table, each step measured and deliberate. Naomi, darling, you had us so worried. And Sarah. How long has it been? 15 years since your episode? The printing shears glint under the fluorescent lights, and I notice something dark crusted near the blades. Soil from her beloved roses, surely. It has to be soil. The garden shed's lock gives way easily. Clara never bothered securing it properly, confident in her control over her domain. Rain hammers the tin roof as I slip inside, Sarah's words echoing in my head. Behind the rose trellises. Loose floorboard. My phone lights up. Brandon's message makes my stomach turn. Come home. We can get you help. Please. The beam of my flashlight catches movement, just my reflection in Clara's printing tools, hanging in perfect rows like surgical instruments. I count them twice. One set is missing. The floorboard creaks under my weight. It's not loose, it's been recently nailed down. My fingers bleed as I pry it up, splinters embedding themselves deep under my nails. There's a book bound in dark leather, its pages swollen with age and secrets. As I reach for it, the shed door swings shut. I wondered how long it would take you to find it. Clara's voice, soft as rose petals. Sarah never made it this far. The flashlight beam catches her face, transformed by shadows into something ancient and terrible. She holds the missing pruning shears. Brandon's waiting at the house, she says, moving closer. He's finally agreed to have you committed. For your own good, of course. Like you did with Sarah? Sarah was weak. But you. She touches my cheek with cold fingers. You have potential. You could learn to tend the roses properly. I clutch the diary to my chest. I'll show Brandon everything. The letters, the diary dash. That's not my diary, dear. Her smile widens. Check the date. The pages fall open. The handwriting is mine or a perfect forgery. Entries detailing paranoid thoughts, violent fantasies, all dated over the past months. You've been planning this since my mother's funeral. Longer. Since Brandon first mentioned you. The shears snap open and closed, a rhythmic threat. I do love fresh roses. They need such careful pruning. Headlights sweep across the shed's window. Brandon's car. He'll believe me, I whisper, but my voice shakes. Like he believed Sarah? His own sister? Clara laughs softly. Love is blind, dear. But a mother's vision? Crystal clear. The shed door opens. Brandon stands there, backlit by the car's headlights, holding commitment papers. It's okay, honey, he says, reaching for me. Mother explained everything. Clara's shears glint in the darkness, and I notice again that dark crust near the blades. Not soil. Never soil. The diary falls from my numb fingers as Brandon steps forward, Clara's perfect smile blooming behind him like a poisonous flower. The pruning shears clatter to the shed floor as Brandon's eyes fix on something behind me, Sarah, standing in the doorway. Soaked from the rain and holding her phone. I've been recording everything, little brother, she says. Every word. Every threat. Clara's mask slips for just a moment, revealing something ancient and terrible beneath. Sarah, darling. You're not well enough to be Dash. Play it, I tell Sarah, my voice steadier than I feel. The recording fills the small space, Clara's voice discussing her plans for me, her methods, her previous victims. Including Brandon's father. Turn that off, Clara snaps, reaching for the shears. But Brandon's faster, kicking them away. Where is he? Brandon's voice cracks. Where's Dad really? Clara's laugh sounds like breaking glass. Where all the roses grow best, darling. Under the garden. She straightens her gardening apron with precise movements. He was going to take you away. Both of you. I couldn't allow that. Brandon stumbles back, his face draining of color. The new rose bushes. Every year, you plant. For everyone who threatens my garden. Clara's smile returns, serene and terrible. Your father. That nosy detective. And soon. She looks at me with something like pride. Well, some flowers need special attention to bloom properly. You're insane, Brandon whispers. I'm a mother protecting her family. She reaches for him, but he recoils. Everything I've done was for you, to keep you close, to keep you mine. I edge toward the door, toward Sarah, but Clara moves with surprising speed, grabbing the shears. Nobody leaves my garden, she hisses, lunging forward. The world narrows to a flash of steel, a spray of warm red. But it's Clara who screams. Brandon stands between us, the shears buried in his shoulder. No more, he gasps. No more pruning. Clara's mask shatters completely. She releases the shears, stumbling backward. My boy, my precious boy. Police are here, Sarah says quietly, her phone still recording. I called them before we came. They're excavating the garden. Red and blue lights strobe through the rain, illuminating Clara's roses in hellish bursts. She looks at her flowers, then at her bloodied hands, and begins to laugh. They'll grow back, she says, touching a rose petal with crimson fingers. They always grow back. As the police swarm the garden, I hold Brandon upright, watching Clara stroke her roses one last time before the handcuffs click shut. Some flowers, she calls over her shoulder, are worth dying for. The rain washes red from the petals, but the roots below know what they've been fed. They always know. The last rose bush comes out of the ground as the forensics team works under floodlights. Brandon stands beside me, his shoulder bandaged, watching them sift through the soil that fed his mother's garden for 15 years. "For bodies so far," Sarah says quietly, joining us at the police line. "Dad was the first." Brandon's hand finds mine in the darkness. "I remember him promising to take us away. I thought it was a dream." The garden lies gutted, Clara's perfect rose reduced to empty holes and evidence markers. From her holding cell, she can't see what they're doing to her roses, but somehow I know she feels it. "They found this," Sarah holds out a small box, dirt still clinging to its edges. "Dad's letters. The real ones." Brandon takes it with trembling fingers but doesn't open it. "I don't know if I can." "You don't have to." "Not yet." I touch the box gently. "Some truths can wait." Liam appears with cups of coffee, steam rising in the cold air. "They're charging her with 4 counts of first-degree murder." The DA says dash. "I don't want to know," Brandon interrupts. "Please." We stand in silence, watching the excavation continue. Each shovelful of earth could reveal another secret, another life Clara pruned to maintain her perfect garden. The detective approaches with evidence bags, Clara's journals, her pruning shears, photographs of her victims. "We'll need statements from all of you," she says. "But it can wait until morning." As she walks away, Sarah pulls out her phone. "Listen to this." It's from her last recording session with her flower arrangement students. She plays the audio. Clara's voice, serene as ever. "The secret to a perfect garden is knowing which flowers need to be removed. Some blooms, no matter how beautiful, threaten the whole garden. A good gardener knows when to cut them away." Brandon turns away, but I catch his expression, grief mixed with something darker. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition of what he might have become under Clara's careful cultivation. "We should go," I say, but he shakes his head. "One more thing." He walks to the last remaining rose bush, Clara's prized white roses, her first plantings. With deliberate movements, he pulls it up by the roots. The hole it leaves is small, unremarkable. Just empty soil waiting for something new to grow. A letter arrives the next day, postmarked before Clara's arrest. Inside, a single dried rose petal and 7 words, "Some gardens bloom best in the dark." I burn the letter, but keep the petal. A reminder that beauty can hide poison, and that some roots run deeper than blood. Brandon plants wildflowers where the roses used to grow. They're chaotic, untamed, and absolutely perfect.